for years after the incident, it occupied my every thought all the time. It's something I just couldn't shake out of my mind.
At the time, Travis was 22 and working on a logging crew in the Sitgreaves National Forest, just outside of town. On November 5th, 1975, the team of 7 men piled into a pickup truck after a long day's work and headed home just after dusk.
We're coming down this road, and we saw some glimmers of light coming through the trees off to the side, up ahead. We were thinking, well, maybe a forest fire, or maybe an airplane had crashed and was hanging up there in the trees or something, because it was just something really very strange.
As the men got closer to the source of the light, they all fell silent.
We looked off to the right side, and we saw this object. This was less than 100 feet away, this glowing metallic object hovering there, outlined against the sky. Just the most incredible thing we'd seen. Somebody yelled out, "It's a spaceship." I mean, it was just incredible. And I yelled, "Stop the truck."
To the horror of the other men, Walton got out of the vehicle.
And they started yelling at me to stop and get back in the truck. But at that point, you know, the way I was back then, you young guys, I was kind of showing off for the crew.
He walked slowly towards the mysterious craft until he was almost underneath it.
I was just standing there looking up at this thing, and I could feel this vibration coming from it, the sound. It's just a strange mixture of high frequency tones and this low rumble that you could feel more than hear, actually. It was like reflecting light at the same time it was giving off light. Suddenly it rose up a little bit, and the sound kind of got louder, and it started making this sort of rocky motion. And those guys just, "Get out of here, let's go, let's go." So I just decided I was going to make a dash for it, and I raised up and turned to go, and wham! I just felt this shock hit me, and it's kind of like an electrical shock. It's just this numbing sort of thing, and I was just unconscious. But the guy said that a blast of energy come out of the bottom of this thing, and it just lit up the whole area, just almost blinding. And they said it just picked me up and threw me back through the air. And they said my body went so far and landed so limp, they just thought it killed me.
In a frenzy of fear, the crew took off, leaving Travis behind.
A lot of people criticize these guys, you know, how come they didn't stop and save their friend? But, you know, we had no guns, and you know, what are these guys going to do? You know, all they could do is maybe, you know, become victims themselves. So, you know, I really don't find fault with the fact that they took off. They just did what I probably would have done, you know.
Though they knew they'd sound crazy, the loggers called the town sheriff and explained what had happened.
The sheriff interviewed the men, and he was very struck by the fact that the men were so shook up. You know, their faces were white, they were shaken. One of the guys was still crying, and so they were convinced that something very serious had happened.
3 of the loggers came back to the forest with the sheriff and other law enforcement officers later that same night. But no trace of Walton could be found. The next day, his disappearance launched a worldwide story and a massive hunt.
There was over 50 men combing this area, 4-wheel drives, men on horseback. There were airplanes and helicopters crisscrossing the area. They even brought in tracking dogs.
But after 4 days of fruitless searching, it became clear that no one knew where on Earth, or elsewhere, Travis Walton was. Neither did Walton.
When I came to, I was lying on my back on a hard surface, and I could see a light above me. I was thinking I was in a hospital.
But Walton soon realized these doctors weren't human.
When I finally got where my eyes could focus, I saw this creature standing over me. They were small, just a little over 4 feet tall. They had a mouth and a human arrangement of features, and their features were small except for the eyes, and the eyes were huge.
Another group of aliens then held Walton down and placed a mask over his face.
That was the last thing I remember. I woke up lying face down on the cold pavement here in the dark, and I could see a light coming from above. I looked up to see this craft hovering there. You know, it was just there for a second when I looked, and it was shot straight up and was gone from sight almost instantly.
Walton found himself near the town of Heber, 30 miles from where he had been abducted. He stumbled into the deserted town and called his family from a payphone. When they arrived, Walton learned just how long he had been gone.
I thought that this was the same night. They said, "Hey, feel your face," and I reached up and I had this, 5-day growth of beard, and I looked at the date on my watch, which was days beyond what it was supposed to be, and that was just quite a shock to me.
An international media circus soon descended on Snowflake, and it didn't take long before Walton's credibility was put on the line.
Then came all these, attacks, claiming that I was hallucinating on drugs, that I'd had a transitory psychosis, all that sort of thing. It just made it really doubly hard to endure.
The furor eventually died down and life went back to normal for the residents of Snowflake. But not for Travis Walton. Constantly assailed by disbelievers and embraced by fans, he has found it almost impossible to move on with his life.
A lot of people think, "Oh, you were chosen." I don't like that. And I prefer to think that, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time and I did the wrong thing, getting too close.
For the time being, Walton still doesn't have the answer to the most important question of all.
I don't know where they came from and I don't know who they were. And all I know is what I experienced. So, to me, they're still a mystery.
Coming up, accounts from Mexico describe a new and even more terrifying vision in the sky. Flying humanoids.
Some people think that these are bad aliens that are flying, trying to abduct people.
And later, thousands witness an unidentified flying object in the Arizona sky.
There were people that were shopping, going in and out of the malls, and they saw it. There were people who were outside jogging, and they saw it.
Mexico's balmy breezes, vibrant culture, and delicious cuisine have made it one of the world's most popular vacation destinations. Whether touring the ancient Mayan ruins of the Yucatan or enjoying mariachi music in Mexico City, millions of people love to visit this beautiful country steeped in color and mysticism.
Mexico is known as the land of wonders and mysteries, the land where legend and reality become one.
But over the past decade, it seems international travelers aren't the only ones flocking to Mexico.
Mexico has received more UFO sightings than any other country on this planet.
The first in a growing wave of sightings occurred on July 11, 1991, during a solar eclipse. People gathered in Mexico City, one of the most populous cities in the world, to watch this rare event in the sky. What they saw was even more startling.
At that moment, when the eclipse began, the people were taping and suddenly a strange unknown object appeared.
They witnessed metallic objects, unidentified flying objects, appear in the sky just as the eclipse was taking place and remained in the sky as the eclipse was finishing. 17 different people in Mexico City from different vantage points filmed this event.
The images that got caught on tape were so spectacular, were so real, were so nitty, so explicit that we finally realized that we have a very solid and important evidence with many witnesses from different places. From that day, the Mexican people realized that it was real.
Since